This is GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly podcast about gaming, technology, and play. Your hosts are Michael Martin, Andy Piper, and Michael Rowe. The thoughts and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests alone and are not the opinions of any organization which they have been, are, or may be affiliated with.
This is episode 529. Shake, shake, shake your iPhone. Hello and welcome to another edition of GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly technology podcasts featuring two Michaels and an Andy, or maybe an Andy and two Michaels, or an Andy, Michael, and a Mike, something like that. Anywho,
Michael, Andy, Michael.
We are here today to talk to all of you who are listening in about all these super cool things that have been happening here in the past week, or maybe a little bit longer. We'll see. Michael, how are you today?
Oh, just peachy keen, excited to be here with both of you. Andy, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on again into your little show about tech, games, work, and the future. It's always fun.
Well, so Andy, we're not just having you on our little show. You're part of this
It's your show too.
You know, we're all here together. So well, let's get things kicked off with some fun. There's some people may have watched an announcement or two in the past week, and we know there's more announcements coming here in the next week or two for different and various sundry companies. But there was a funny little ad put together by John, who bills himself as a film nerd out of the UK, about what can be done with a brand new, almost entirely made of glass phone that has a feature of no camera. And this was really pretty funny. And you got to watch it to get a sense of it. But the main thrust is that why even bother having a camera? When can you just have AI create all the photos that you might want for you, put them in your camera roll, and they're going to be just as great as if you took them with all of the great camera technology you possibly could.
So much more.
And you won't need a plateau on the back of your phone.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be just skinny and thin.
Go for the flatto.
Yeah. So that was a fun one to kind of kick us off, and we've got a few interesting AI pieces for this week. One of which is an article from The Verge dealing with Amazon, and this particular ad, it is an ad, kind of, isn't it?
It feels
right?
like an ad.
Most of the online magazines have become ads. Let's face it.
It talks about a new pair of AR glasses that do really unique things, like tell people wayfinding and how to move from place to place for Amazon drivers, and have a camera and a microphone built into them too. So pretty exciting material here, isn't it, guys?
You mean how to make...
I think the real thing here is Amazon drivers being required to wear these.
Yeah, it's how to make your employees even more into robots that you control remotely.
Yes.
Which
you and I can't get these unless you want to go to work for Amazon as a driver.
Well, what if an Amazon driver left them by accident at the bar, after they had a drink after work, right? That might be a way to get one.
I mean, it's also a potentially a good idea to test on a smaller internal audience rather than releasing this commercially alongside Meta, who have already 2 or 3 generations of their Ray-Ban glasses and apparently will be announcing some new ones next week. And if this is just for their drivers, all jokes aside, then they can be super targeted about what they need them to do, what functions they need to provide, and actually test them at they're talking about 100,000 units allegedly for drivers initially. So that is a decent scale for sure, but it's not anyone can get them, and it needs to provide all kinds of integrations that might not be relevant to that audience. So maybe it's a smart thing. Maybe you could look at it from that perspective. I am serious when I joked about the improving ways to automate and roboticize your workforce, but I'm also not thinking that this is a terrible idea in terms of competing with somebody like an organization like Meta.
I think I was really of two minds to this when I saw it. One, I do think there are some really powerful use cases. We've been talking about them for almost 20 years when it comes to AR and VR and all this other stuff of enterprise usage of things that have many sensors, collect data, and provide contextual awareness. Great. And then I went, we already hear horror stories of Amazon drivers and Amazon workers not having time to go to the bathroom. And now you're going to have recording video glasses on when you go to the bathroom.
That's assuming,
started freaking out.
That's assuming that they're stapled to the Amazon driver's head and they can't remove
It assumes
them.
that. How often do you take your glasses off, right?
I'm not wearing them right now.
Naturally.
No, but that's a different story, right? How often do you take your glasses off if you need to wear them is different to how often do you take your glasses off if they are an optional or an accessory for your work that you do not require to function as a human. But
I know. And so just the accidental usage, right? Because if you do have prescription glasses and you have to wear these, you go, oh, give me the prescription one so I don't have to worry about it. And then it's like you already sign away all privacy on your work machines because it is a corporate asset, and rightfully so, which is why you shouldn't put personal stuff on your work machine. But when the work machine is on your face, I kind of went down that path a bit. And then I back again to, but there are some really great use cases, and this is a great way of improving the tech and making it accessible and all the things that we've talked about. So, it was an interesting story.
Yeah, and there's an old use case that would be intriguing to see if Amazon incorporated, especially given that they're drivers, and that is around fatigue and fatigue management. So if there's a gyroscope and there's a way of measuring the angle, for example, of the glasses on the wearer, you might be able to know when someone is nodding off and you could do something about it, right? So there's some things like that that could be really intriguing for a driver who you want to monitor and make sure that they're not fatigued as they're engaging in traffic. So with you there, Michael, but remains to be seen, and it'll be interesting to see what comes around next week from the Meta Connect experience that Andy, you were saying, that is next week. So let's see what Meta's coming up with as well. All right. Next up is something that at least tickled me, and I think all of us here at least a little bit. And there are different ways of interacting with your mobile or your facial computing kind of devices. And this particular article talks about the way of shaking to summarize. So Firefox now has a mechanism that if you shake it, it uses that as a trigger to do something, in which in this case it says, look, give me an AI summary. And Andy, you alluded to something really intriguing about this as we were doing our preparation for the show. So let's have it.
I'm not sure what I alluded to, but specifically, but one of the things that I've seen the open source community, particularly the folks that are interested in Mozilla's success, Mozilla's existence, especially after it's been threatened by losing its main revenue stream if Google was prevented from sending them money on a regular basis through the antitrust thing with Chrome and others. You know, it's a wealthy organization, and it keeps doing things around things like AI rather than potentially building accessible, good for the world, good for public usage technology. So there's a lot of frustration in some of the circles that I'm part of around how Mozilla chooses to improve its products or create brand new experiences rather than focusing on the core and making Firefox as a browser truly competitive with Chrome, for example. It's a good browser. It's definitely a good backup browser, and some people do use it as their primary because they choose not to use Chrome. But it's definitely seen as an also-ran in the browser world, and I think there's a lot of frustration in that community around this kind of feature, right? Using AI to summarize a web page rather than just showing you the web page. That's what a browser's for. And then the kind of the cutesiness of shake to summarize. Now, it's an interesting story to me for a couple of reasons, if I'm allowed to go on speaking without either of you interrupting me. And I just see two frozen faces on the other end of the screen here. No, they're not completely frozen. And it's specific to iOS, and it's specific to iOS 26 next week, which launches next week. The new version of iOS will be on the new phones because it's using the on-device AI model. And if, in my experience of trying to use Apple Intelligence on my current generation phone to do things like summarize text, there's a number of taps involved, right? You have to select the text, you have to long press, you have to go into the text utilities or whatever the menu is in there, and then choose what you want to do. And so it's kind of nice that they've built this in this way. It does talk about the fact that it will also work without the shake interaction, which we all remember from shake to undo and all those other things that came back in the early days.
And all that.
That's right, all of the things that came earlier on in the iPhone life cycle. And they also talk about the fact that they've got the Mozilla has a cloud-based AI system that it can use if you're not on iOS 26 and the newest models with on-device intelligence. Whether this is a useful use of technology, generally speaking, and certainly from Mozilla's reputation perspective, I know that a lot of people are frustrated with them for not really focusing on the core of what they claim to be there to do, to compete, to be a counterweight to the big commercial ad-driven models.
What I found interesting about this is a couple of fold. One, I remember, I think it was like March, April, May time frame when Firefox started introducing AI-based features in the browser itself. And the Security Now podcast did a review on it, and we're talking about how to disable it. Because why do you need your browser to do that? As you said, Andy, a browser is there to present you with the information that you go looking for, i.e. the web page. And both my wife and my mother-in-law, this is their browser of choice. And they definitely do not appreciate the browser getting additional information through AI models and sucking it up to their AI cloud, et cetera, et cetera. So we will include in the show a how to disable that feature in the show notes.
But you have to go in.
But what I did find interesting about this is that the iOS version, at least, it sounds like, will utilize the on-device models, right, which is the Apple's foundation models, which the better those get over time, the better it is for privacy and other things. And then you can use it as a tool, not as a way of collecting data on your users, right? Because if you've got a summarization feature, AI-based, using an on-device model, etc., there are some good use cases for that, and I'm okay with them. So it's another one of these stories that has good and bad all kind of jumbled together. Your point, though, about the community reaction from an open source perspective was something I hadn't thought of. And that really is, I think, the right point here. And that is, if you're going to get these cache infusions, use it to improve the product overall, especially as being a counter to Chrome as it relates to privacy and security, etc.
I have in the past commented about how my name is on the Mozilla Monument or Memorial or whatever they called it in San Francisco when they first sort of set up the foundation, got people to donate. I was somebody who was very excited about that. And unfortunately these days, I think the Mozilla organization has got a relatively poor reputation. It's very cash rich, but it's seen as giving that money to the people running it at the top rather than spending it in ways that can further some foundational tech. That is not to say they don't do other good things, and some of the stuff they have done around machine learning is really impressive. I've got people that I know that work on some of those technologies, but I know there's a lot of frustration in the community around where they choose to invest.
My last thing that I'll add into this conversation, we actually spent a lot of time on this, but the one thing I was also thinking about was the shaking typically, at least in my past experience, has been more of an undo feature, right?
Yes.
So when you think about shaking as an action or a back tap or, whatever you do, or the flick of a wrist gesture or things like that, this will become ingrained as a way that humans interact with machines. And maybe there'll be a shake to summarize concept that people will do, or maybe it's going to be sort of the one-off here that's just going to show up on this particular instance. I don't know.
Well, okay, let's think about how many people actually use Mozilla Firefox on their iPhones.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's going to be a very slow progress to that if that's the direction the rest of the industry moves. But we'll see.
We'll see. Next up on our hit parade is a little bit of AI manipulation that deals with an example of a state senator in the state of North Carolina whose speech was incorrectly what's the right thing here? That it was incorrectly appropriated and was deepfaked and attributed to them. And you could argue, is that now the deepfake? Is that a situation where somebody directly manipulated, cutting and pasting things? There's a variety of ways of looking at this sort of thing. And when I took a quick glance at this particular article, the thing that struck me here is we have lots of examples of AI hallucinating. I've heard stories in this past week or so about sportscasters who've won prestigious awards that they actually didn't win, and that prestigious award doesn't exist.
So there's the podcast.
Messages like that.
Our own podcast has won several awards, I believe. If you ask the right hallucination, then
we are an award-nominated podcast. I think we self-nominated ourselves for a Webby or
don't
something.
Don't tell everybody that. We were just barely a runner-up. Yeah, so hallucinations are going to show up in a lot of different forms and factors, and when you think about how much content is out there, we were talking about this in the pre-show too. We only have a couple of episodes, 500 and some odd. So finding a way of saying what the voices are and what they're saying could be, unfortunately, kind of trivially used, right?
But was this a hallucination, i.e., wrong, or was it? I mean, she evidently did do some TED Talks.
Yeah.
Around, I guess, energy usage or costs or whatever, and it was an ad for a Whirlpool appliance that was energy efficient. So, is that really a hallucination? I think it's an inappropriate capture of her likeness and content for usage that was not signed up for. Now, was it right or wrong what she said in that? Again, don't know. I haven't watched the TED Talks or the ad. So I think the interesting part is back to who owns their content. Did TED license the content to the makers of the model?
Should they have been approached for permission to use that?
Yeah.
And then it would have been identified much more quickly that potentially that wasn't something that they'd said.
Kind of like what the Netherlands does, right? Where every individual can own the copyright to their own voice and likeness and the like.
Denmark?
And this won this won a video.
Maybe it was Denmark.
This won an award at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity. So this is an award-winning ad. So I mean, there's so much to unpack, and it's just interesting that we keep having stories like this of data being used or content being used in a way that may or may not have been originally approved and was not asked for approval.
It's Denmark. You were absolutely right, Andy.
Of course, that's what you have me on the show for.
There we go. Got to check everything and make sure that it's right. Now, if we had this next device, it would be just like having your own pal Andy hanging around all the time, but extra snarky, right?
I don't know if you can get extra snarky.
That's called carrot.
Yeah,
carrot weather.
You can dial that's what it struck me like. This is a AI assistant that is listening to you as a physical device all the time and provides carrot-like interactions and commentary, which I guess there are some people that need that, right? Or maybe want that. I mean, carrot weather is kind of fun if you like the snark. That is good fun.
I feel sure that we talked. Yeah, I mean, it does say that that this was reported on last year. So the object, it's called the Friend, right? But
Yes.
I don't remember the foul moodiness of this device being the big feature at the time. I think back at that time, it was literally being talked about as if it was a friend to you. And that you carried with you. But that now I'm reading in this story on Futurism that we got in the show notes that back last year it was tested as, and it had an intentional snarky behavior. I just don't remember that being the thing.
I don't either, but how would we have missed it? I mean, this is maybe like in our wheelhouse sort of thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were so many of these always-on listening devices, and the fact that this one chatted with you, I guess, is the unique thing that we probably would have talked about a year plus ago.
It's like your own.
I don't remember the snark.
It's like your Mystery Science Theater 3000 personal crowbot saying what you're talking about right now is the dumbest thing it's ever heard. Right, it's like I don't need
for
that.
For me, it would be chatting the whole time.
It's funny though, because this story goes on to talk about at the very end the other devices that have been in this category.
Rabbit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Humane, which we talked about. Rabbit, which we talked about. And actually, another story that came up this week, which I didn't put into our notes, is that Rabbit R1, which I think many of us assumed was gone away, now has a brand new operating system, Rabbit OS 2. So I'm sure Ian is
OS 2.
Yes, Rabbit OS 2. So I'm sure Ian is unironically enjoying the upgrades there.
That is going to be entirely too much fun, right? All right, so wrapping things up for this week, we've got a couple of fun things. First, from Retro Dodo, this complete, as the article said, the complete range of iPod click wheel games that has been preserved and for people to play them. Now, I would have to imagine that the software experience of doing a click wheel game is going to leave something to be desired, but it's still nice to have the ability to play them anyway. And there's, 54 of them. That's pretty cool.
Did either of you guys play on these things? I had an iPod Mini with the click wheel. I didn't have a full-size iPod at any stage because I had the Mini.
I did,
or the Nano.
but I didn't play games with it.
Michael Rowe is holding up his iPod right now with a click wheel.
Yep.
I don't remember playing games on it either. There we go. He's got multiple, of course he has. Yeah. Oh no, it's a case. Sorry, it's a case.
No, this is the iPod Video.
Oh yeah.
And this is the iPod, I think 20 or 40 gig.
Gosh. Anyway, yeah, I do like the idea that someone has gone to the effort to try to preserve these things. And it's being run in a virtual machine. And yeah, I'm curious to see how they're doing the actual interactions. But
no, this is actually on the device. You have to go and convert your iPod to FAT32, and then you can start to add these folders and reboot your iPod, and then they will play.
Oh, I misunderstood.
So
I'm the
I
one that
misunderstood
shared this
too
with you, and I didn't. I misunderstood this completely.
Well, I'm just reading the GitHub, readme stuff. So now I get it.
But see, I wouldn't convert my devices because I actually have. I plug them in every once in a while just to make sure they're still working because there's a little bit of music on some and some videos on the other. I've pulled it off, but I just think it's kind of cool to have it on there. I remember watching Babylon 5 on an airplane.
Oh my goodness.
On the video one.
Craziness. Good effort. Good commitment there, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know that I would take one of mine and do these steps here either, because I would not want to corrupt potentially or have to find a way to reverse it. But still,
yeah,
well done by this particular individual and or team to preserve these games for all time. All right, last up, we did a little bit of play experience on this right in the pre-show of a game called Doom Scrolling, because we love our Doom here on gamesatwork.biz. And
our scrolling.
And our
I don't know if I
ChatGPT.
like scrolling as much, but yeah, we like all those elements in one way or another. It's worth playing. It's worth having some fun with. And the general premise here is you scroll through this game. You've got a degree of health. If you're like Michael, you get offered power-ups that you can play in the game, which Andy and I, neither one of us got, and I'm very sad about that. But you scroll through. You might get distracted by a news article. And if you do, then, of course, then you lose your life points because you're now being distracted as part of the doom scroll.
I like there's two links. I mean, the main link that we've got here is a link to the blog post where he describes it, and it took off because I think it ended up on Hacker News and Lobsters as well. So that's how I came across it. And he talks through how he built it, but towards the top of the article, there's a link directly to the game. You can just click in a browser and play, and you can also play on mobile as well as on the desktop. And yeah, as Michael says, it's as simple as scrolling up the screen as if you were using your mouse wheel or using your finger to scroll the screen, as if you were doom scrolling a social feed, and your character is constantly shooting and can hit things. And then the idea here, though, is he's written this whole blog post about what his thought process was, which I always love to see how people come up with these things. And he did it with ChatGPT. He described the idea. He goes through the process of building it. He goes through the idea of just, he also wanted to combine the concept of doom scrolling, like the news feeds, the misery of the news feeds. And so he's pulling in items from RSS feeds and then making them into these kind of solid stone plaques on the ground as you go down through this dungeon. The idea being that this is some kind of ancient civilization that you've unsealed and then you're playing in the future. And I think it's a very, very cool idea. I like it. I think it's
what? We should recommend that he does a similar version of this, but with poetry instead of real news articles. Like AI-driven poetry. That would be kind of fun. Because you could get distracted by that too, and that probably wouldn't be as bad as the news these days.
Good point.
Well, if you want to get distracted, you should go over to your favorite podcatcher, rate us, tell your friends about us, and maybe tag us on Mastodon with some interesting stories you want to hear about.
Do that.
And how would they do that?
They would just post to gamesatwork_biz at mastodon.social, and we would see it, or you could ping any of us and we would see it. We would put it into our show notes, and then we would put it through our complicated filters, editorial curation process, figure out how it all fits in with the theme and story of the show that we're telling this week, and then we would do an in-depth technical analysis with philosophy, history, news, and culture thrown in.
Yes.
Because that's what we bring you every week. Or we like to believe.
All for the low price of absolutely free.
So tell all your friends. And I think we've lost Michael Martin because he's doom scrolling again.
I got doom scrolled again. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't help it. I was just scrolling my way through it.
All right,
so
Michael,
yeah, let's call the game here, right?
Yeah. So we're going to say see ya, and Michael's going to go back to doom scrolling.
Yes.
See ya.
I'm scrolling more. Bye.
You've been listening to GamesAtWork.biz, the podcast about gaming technology and play. We are part of the Blueberry Podcasting Network, and would like to thank the band Random Encounters for their song, Big Blue. You can follow us at our website at GamesAtWork.biz.